Hello and welcome. I'm Bill Wade, a captain with the Tampa Fire Department, and this is Fireline. Typically on this program, we deal with issues that center on the local EMS and fire service system. Today, we are going to vary from that format slightly and discuss a very interesting medical topic: human organ donation and transplantation. Medical advances have made it possible to transplant numerous tissues and organs from one human being into another in the attempt to improve and save lives. The first transplants, which occurred in 1905, were with corneas, which is a part of the covering of the eye. Blood transfusions began around 1918. The first kidney was transplanted in the 1950s, and the first heart was transplanted in the late 1960s. The United States is a leader in the technology that makes organ transplants possible. Advances in medical science have made transplant surgery increasingly successful. We are now able to perform transplantation of skin, heart-lung combinations, lungs, pancreases, liver, bone, and bone marrow. Even with the ability to transfer vital organs, the waiting list for organ transplantation grows larger each month. Currently in the United States, over 40,000 persons are awaiting transplants. Nearly 200 of those persons live right here in the Tampa Bay area. Locally in the past year, the transplant waiting list has gone up some 32%. While the number of donations has declined nearly 35%. In the studio with me today is Miss Barbara Banks from the LifeLink organization, and also Louise Moffett, who received a liver donation back in 1989. Ladies, thanks for being in the studio today.
Thank you.
Barbara, I'd like to start with you if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit about the LifeLink organization, the local organ procurement agency for this area. What is it about? What does it do?
Well, LifeLink has been in the area for a number of years, and we're a nonprofit, charitable, and scientific organization. And we are assigned our area here in the Tampa Bay by the government, and we're responsible for recovering organs and tissues for transplantation. That's what we do.
Now, let's say I was the one that was sick. My kidneys were failing or something like that. How would I get on this organ donation waiting list?
Well, let's assume that you are under the care of a physician, and your physician would discuss your options with you, one of which might include transplantation, at which point you may be referred to a transplant center where a number of medical personnel would evaluate your condition and your ability to undergo a transplant.
Now, you talked about the transplant center and the waiting list and a ranking order of some type. How does this ranking order work, or how does this get set up?
Well, the system is set up nationally by the United Network for Organ Sharing, and I forgot to mention that LifeLink is part of this federal system. We're one of a number of agencies around the country that work together. And this ranking system is really it's based on the patient's genetic markers that make that individual unique. And the ranking system includes the size of the organ the patient would need, the blood type, the tissue type, and other factors.
So what you're saying, is this a national standard for this ranking list, or is it set up locally?
There are standards set up across the nation, and they affect local, regional, and national centers. And again, the patient is ranked mainly on the medical characteristics that they exhibit.
All right, so I become ill. I go to my doctor, he says, okay, my kidneys are failing, maybe I have to go on dialysis and stuff. I go to a transplant center, they evaluate me, they rank me according to certain medical markers, and I'm put on a waiting list. Now, how long might I have to wait to receive that organ donation?
Well, the waiting time can vary. The waiting time can be a matter of hours, or for some patients it can be a number of years. So it really does vary. It can depend on a number of factors. Certainly the main factor is whether there is an organ donor to match that particular patient.
In the Tampa Bay area, what hospitals are these transplant centers? What hospitals do the organ transplantations?
Yeah, here in Tampa we have Tampa General, and then in St. Petersburg, All Children's Hospital performs transplants as well.
Recently on the news, and I'm not sure if you mentioned it here or just not, I've heard of a group that's called UNOS. It's an abbreviation for something. What is UNOS or UNOS, and what do they do? How do they play into this?
UNOS stands for the United Network for Organ Sharing, And it's a nonprofit private organization that is contracted with the federal government to administer the United States Organ Procurement and Transplantation Network. Now, all of the organ procurement agencies like LifeLink, the transplant hospitals, the labs, and all the affiliated agencies are members of UNOS, and UNOS oversees the system and makes sure that everyone's following the rules and that patients are transplanted as quickly and safely as possible.
Louise, let's hear a little bit about your story now. I understand you received a liver transplant back a number of years ago, back when you were a teenager, I guess it was. Mm-hmm. What happened there? Give us an idea of what happened with you.
Well, I was running cross country, and during my times, I wasn't performing as well as I should be, and I had trouble breathing, and so my father took me to a couple specialists, and they did not know what was wrong with me. But after 5 days, I was walking home in the parking lot from church, and I was walking to the car, and I could not breathe. I just could not breathe, so my father rushed me to a hospital, and from there, my health declined greatly. I was, the next morning, I could not walk, so I was taken to a hospital, and within 5 days, I was diagnosed with Wilson's disease, and that is the inability for the body to get rid of copper, and copper poisons the liver. And so within 5 days, I became critically ill.
So now, before you started becoming sick with this Wilson's disease, you were an athletic person?
Yes,
You were up in
yes, I ran cross country and track. I was very active in school activities, school organizations, but I just all of a sudden got sick.
Okay. So you were taken to Miami at that time, is that where it was?
I was taken to Tampa General Hospital for a day, and they diagnosed me 95% with Wilson's disease. And so I was airlifted by air ambulance to Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami.
And that's where you received the first
liver.
But from what I understand from previous conversation with you, you really don't remember a lot about that because you were so sick.
Yes, yes. I was in and out of consciousness. My body was failing rapidly. My kidneys started failing, and at that time, the doctors thought I might need a kidney transplant as well as a liver transplant because my kidneys had started failing.
And then you received the liver.
Yes.
And you were also telling me it took a lot of, because you had been so weak, you had to go through a lot of therapy and stuff to get better?
Yes, I was so ill. I was in a coma for 9 days. I woke up on the 9th day, and I was in ICU for 2 months. I could not eat by myself. I had to learn to walk again, not using my muscles. And after being a cross-country runner, it was very hard for me to take. But I did it.
Now,
Yes.
I think the interesting part of your story also comes even after this. After you got the liver, you went through all this therapy.
Yes.
You had something that we've heard about, something called organ rejection.
Yes.
That you experienced. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. After I was transplanted in Miami, I came home 2 months later, and I was in and out of the hospital. I wasn't feeling as well as I should be, but the energy wasn't there. I felt better, but my energy was not there, and I was on high doses of medication. I was not feeling well, and so my father and I went to Miami maybe every 2 weeks, and so that's not common. If your body accepts the organ, you do well. The first year is very critical, and my first year did not go well, and so after about 6 months, my doctor had determined I might need another liver transplant because the organ was rejecting.
And you said at that time, and of course, once again, we hear about this stuff on the news, read about it in the newspaper. You were on certain medicines that are supposed to stop your body from rejecting the organ. You said there was a new medicine coming out that you went to Pittsburgh to try to see if you could save the liver that had been transplanted into you.
Yes, at the time it was FK506, now called Prograf, and I was flown to Pittsburgh. My father and I went to Pittsburgh to try to recover the transplanted liver after using this stronger medication. But after 2 months of trying, it did not work, and my body did start failing, and so the doctors realized that I needed another transplant.
Now, okay, you're up in Pittsburgh. You're waiting. Let me back up here for just a minute because you've mentioned him several times. In the conversation we had before this show, You talked about your father and the support you got from your family and the neighbor. Could you tell the people here just a little bit about what your father does and how he was able to spend just so much time with you? Because it sounds like there's a lot of time driving back and forth to Miami, going up to Pittsburgh and stuff. How was that possible?
My father, he is retired from the military, and so he receives pension from the military, but he works for the Sheriff's Department here in Pinellas County. He did at the time. Now he's retired. But through the community efforts, they had fundraisers for me, and also people that worked with my father donated their sick hours and their vacation hours so he could stay with me.
Great. That's really great. It sounds like there's been a lot of strain on your family, all this traveling and separation and stuff. I think you said even during the time you were up in Pittsburgh, your mother and father
they were apart.
Were apart for all that time.
Yes.
And okay, you're in Pittsburgh. You were getting a lot sicker.
Yes,
what
on December 10th, I got critically ill. I stopped eating. I could not eat by myself. I just didn't have the appetite, and so I was fed intravenously. And on December 16th, I received a second liver.
So you were in the hospital, you received a second liver.
Within 6 days.
Now, let me ask you a very serious question. You've received probably the greatest gift anybody ever get from somebody. Do you ever think about those people who donated their livers to you? What do you know about them? What must you feel when you think about those people?
Absolutely, I think about them every day. I'm here today because of them, but I not only received the caring gift from one family, but two families, and so I think education is very important, and I would just like to thank them, and through their tragedy, I'm able to be here today, and it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful.
Now, we were talking about, after you got somebody else's organ inside of you, you have any strange cravings?
No,
no,
not really.
Any change in taste or anything?
No. Just me.
It's just you.
Yes.
There's nothing in you.
No.
Now, we mentioned, let me just stay with you for just another couple of minutes because I'm trying to get something across here. I mentioned in the opening little monologue there that there's some 40,000 people in the United States, some 200 right here in Tampa Bay area, waiting what basically you've received, whether it's a kidney or a liver or something. They're waiting on some type of transplant to radically change their life, if not save it. What must it feel like knowing there's people out there waiting for something maybe that you've got? And how do you think they feel? What do you think it's like?
It's devastating. It's very hard because you're literally waiting for somebody to die. But it's just through education, and if people know about organ donation, they know more about it. I think it would be not so much an easier decision to make. I think it would just be a more educated decision, and more people's lives would be saved. There's a need for them, but people don't know about it, and so that's why people do have to get critically ill in order to receive a transplant.
Thank you very much. That's a heck of a story. Barbara, tell us now, who can become an organ donor?
Bill, virtually anyone can be an organ donor. There is no upper age limit. Basically, the medical suitability is determined at the time of death, so anyone can consider potential donation and to talk to their family about it.
Now, that's a point I'd like you to elaborate on for a minute. Okay, on my driver's license, I got the little thing, saying I'd be willing to be an organ donor and stuff like that. But in some previous conversation we had, you said that's not really the key component is making that decision yourself. You needed to talk to the family. Could let us know about that. What do you mean?
That's right. Now, signing a donor card and having it on your license is very, very important, and there's one further step that we urge people to do, and that's to tell their family members their intentions, because family consent is part of the donation process, and we do proceed with donation only when we have family consent.
Okay, now, once again, another serious question now. Okay, I've got organ donor on my driver's license indicating that I'd be willing to. Let's say tragedy occurs to myself or a loved one, serious head injury in a car accident or something. Does the fact that I've indicated that I am willing to be an organ donor change any of the medical treatment that I would receive at the hospital, vary any of the life-saving measures that the medical staff at a Tampa General or a St. Joseph's would do to try to save my life?
No, your care is not compromised at all. The physicians and the nurses who are caring for a patient when they're critically ill and having been in an accident are only concerned with saving that patient's life and doing everything they can. The donation element only comes to play after the person has died and after all efforts have been made to save their life. So the care of a patient is never compromised for donation to occur.
Another consideration in the medical field, as we all know watching the headlines over the past many years, is expense. Is there any expense to my family for that loved one or myself being an organ donor after a tragedy has occurred to myself with a loved one?
No, the system is set up so that organ donation is indeed a gift, and the organ procurement agencies around the country, like LifeLink, are actually billed for the donation process. So if there's ever any kind of an error, we make sure that we communicate with families so that we are contacted and we can help people with the questions they may have about billing. But no, the family should never be responsible for any cost related to donation.
That's good. That's good. Louise, if there's somebody out there who's watching this show who's thinking about, talking with their family about being an organ donor, what I mean, you being a recipient of this life-saving surgery, what would you say to them?
I would say to seriously consider it, tell your next of kin, discuss it with them, ask them their opinions on it. It's not just your decision, it's your family's decision also. And if this is your wishes, then absolutely, you should talk it over with them. You could save a life. You could have another person give them better quality of life or give them a new life.
Now, one of the things we talked about, Barbara, was there's a need in the minority area, especially for organ donors. Could you expound on that just a little bit about what the problem is there?
Yeah, there's a unique need in the African American community in particular. For some reason, African Americans tend to experience renal or kidney failure at a higher degree than other populations. And because of the genetic markers that we all have, there is a tendency for better matches to occur within the same genetic group or the same race. So we try to do a lot to educate the public at large and specific groups about the need. And African Americans do have a unique need and a unique opportunity to help one another through organ donation.
So what you're saying is, let me just backtrack across this. This is kind of important. If I donate blood, that's matched a lot easier across the races, but when it comes to organ transplant or something, that doesn't match across the races quite as well. Is that what you're saying?
Well, particularly with kidneys.
With kidneys
and there can be matching from race to race, but there is a tendency for the genetic markers to be more similar in the race, and it is particular to kidneys. So about a third of the waiting list for kidneys are African Americans, and it's important that number one, we be aware that there's a unique need, and number two, discuss it and realize the importance of organ donation and how it can help others.
And from what I understand in my reading, the waiting list is what, 3/4 or 2/3 kidney patients?
Just about, largely kidneys.
Largely kidneys. And I noticed in some other information too that I received, the waiting time in the United States for a kidney transplant is like 3 times what it is in the Tampa Bay area. The Tampa Bay area for receiving a kidney transplant is I believe 130 some days versus the United States being well over 600 days. What are we doing right in this area to have such a short waiting period comparatively to the rest of the United States for a kidney transplant?
Well, it's really a community-wide effort. LifeLink works with area agencies and hospitals, and we have very good systems set up, and of course the community and the families who say yes to donation make it all possible. So all of those factors combined tend to make the waiting time a little bit shorter in this area.
Now, we're getting close to the end of our time, and let's say somebody out there, they've gotten interested, or at least they want more information about being an organ donor, or filling in their organ donation card, talking to their family. They don't know really what to talk about. Who can they call? Who can they get some information about becoming an organ donor from?
Well, people can call LifeLink, and we send out lots of information on request. We have a 24-hour answering service, and we send out literature, and we can send out a button that people can wear to tell people of their intentions to be a potential donor. So if people would like information, we're in the phone book, and we're happy to send out more detailed information about organ donation.
That's great. Louise, let me just get back to your story for just a minute, because there's a point I meant to follow up on and we didn't earlier. You received that second liver.
Yes.
Excuse me, we're calling them kidneys. I almost said kidney. You received that second liver in about 1989.
Yes.
I think it's pretty obvious, probably from people who are watching you, but you look to be doing very well. You look
Yes.
healthy and energetic. And
Yes,
all.
I am. Now it's almost 6 years later, and I'm doing very well. I completed high school with my class, and I just graduated from college. And so now I'm going to be looking for a job and, you know, finishing what I was here to do.
What was your degree in from the college?
Journalism.
So if somebody's
Journalism.
watching this who's got a photojournalism job or journalism
Yes.
job available, they can
Sure.
contact you and maybe offer you a job. That'd be great. Is there anything else that you might want to say to somebody watching this show that think about becoming an organ donor? I know you've already encouraged them, but please.
Right. I just think that families just need to be educated. I think education is the most important key to organ donation. If people are educated about organ donation, they can make a decision and they have a well-rounded decision made. And so I think God doesn't need our organs upstairs. So if you can keep them down here and let other people live through them.
That's great. That's great. Barbara Banks with the LifeLink organization, thank you so much for being here with us today. Louise, thank you also.
Thank you.
Your story was very interesting, very dramatic. I know I appreciated hearing it very much. And in closing, I would like to pay my respects to a good friend and co-worker who recently passed away. On October 19th, Mike Ciara died at the young age of 40. He died of a heart attack. Mike moved to Florida from Ohio in 1977. Shortly after, he began his emergency services career. He attended fire school and the EMT course in 1983. He volunteered at Armdale Fire Department for several years, rising to the rank of assistant chief. In July 1984, Mike was hired by the Hillsborough County Emergency Medical Services as an EMT and went on to paramedic school in 1988. Then, in 1989, Mike decided to use his experience as a paramedic to help others as they began their EMS careers. So he began working at Hillsborough Community College as an EMT instructor. Mike loved working with students and was continuously employed at HCC until the night of October 13, 1994. It was this night that he returned home from the college and suffered a heart attack. He fought for his life for 5 days. Mike passed away on the morning of October 19, 1994. He never recovered enough to be placed on the organ donation list of which we spoke. Even if he had, the time he would have spent waiting for an organ match would have worn away at him, and there would have been no assurances that Mike wouldn't have died waiting for a replacement heart. He touched this community and many lives in it in more ways than he will ever know. For even though Mike is gone, those he instructed at the college continue to help others that are stricken by sudden medical emergencies. Mike also touched this community by saving lives and relieving suffering of those patients he responded to in his job as a Hillsborough County paramedic. Mike also lives on in some of the EMS training videos that he helped produce. In honor of Mike Ciara and his work, an academic scholarship fund has been established at Hillsborough Community College. This scholarship fund will help EMS students that attend HCC. If you have any questions about the scholarship fund, call Donna Allen at 253-7161. I'll repeat that number. It is 253-7161. Or you can write to the Roland Michael Ciara Memorial Fund, care of HCC Foundation, 39 Columbia Drive in Tampa. Thank you for being with us here on Fireline today. Good day.